Check 1, 2. Return to people.
What's happening, everybody? We are back with another Return to People episode. And today's guest, they climbed from HR intern to executive business partner at a company that's been crushing remote work since before the pandemic made it cool. She spent 4 years mastering the art of balancing what employees need with what employees deserve, especially when your team is spread across the country. Now she's leading people operations for 130 remote consultants at Canidium, a sales performance management consultant firm, and tackling one of HR's toughest challenges, making sure everyone gets the growth opportunities they deserve, not just the revenue generators. Get ready for real talk about onboarding wins, development gaps. Please welcome Annie Diiorio.
That was a pretty good bio. You make me sound cool.
We love Oreos. We love it all. Settle down, studio audience. Just settle down, sit down, calm down. Sorry, Annie. Sorry about them. They're really excited. We gave them all
They go
Oreos
crazy for me.
in preparation for you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Kaleem. I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on. This is my first podcast, so I'm excited to be here.
Well, listen, I can already tell you're a professional. I'm feeling it. We're both looking right. We're both looking good. We're ready to go, Annie. So
Let's do it.
we got to talk about yourself a little bit. You know, we need to know, who is Annie? All right. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you landed where you are today?
Yes. So I started at Canidium in October of 2021 as the HR intern. I was a senior in college at Colorado State University and heard about the internship, applied, got the job. And about a month after I started, the HR generalist who was reporting to moved and got a new job. So it was just me, the only HR person in the company, in college, an intern, a month of experience.
Oh my gosh.
And it was the sink or swim kind of thing. I remember going to office hours for one of my Spanish classes, and my teacher was like, "¿Cómo estás?" And I was like, "I'm stressed." And I started crying, and it was so sweet. We just spent the whole Spanish office hours in English talking about how overwhelming really it was to be trying to figure out this job. And I wanted to take on the responsibility and not just quit and leave it to whoever else could pick up the pieces. So I got through that, and I'm so glad that I did. And we hired an HR manager, and she was amazing. And then I graduated in May, and I went to Belize for 3 months. And then when I came back in August,
Okay.
I started full time, and the HR manager retired 4 days after I started.
Oh my gosh. Remind me never to go anywhere after you start something, because that means somebody's leaving. So, oh my gosh.
I know.
Talk about just being like, hey, good luck. Good luck. So what's amazing is leadership believed in you.
Yeah. Yeah. Even from the start as an intern, I think I tried my best and I wasn't afraid to ask for help. I mean, I didn't really have another choice. I hardly knew how to use our applicant tracking system. I didn't know the norms or the tools. So I had to ask for help. And I think that really helped me to get to know people and build relationships. And still, there's people that I wouldn't normally work with, but sometimes they help me out on projects. I think from those early days when I was figuring things out. And that helped form a strong relationship with our CEO, who I've been reporting to since I started full time. So started as HR generalist and then promoted to manager. And then last month, I now have a kind of a dual role. My title is HR manager and executive business partner. So we hired an HR coordinator, and all along we've had an HR intern. So built out our HR team a little bit. I oversee that. And then the other part of my role is working more closely with our CEO and helping with things like internal communications, QBR prep, strategic planning, things like that. So it's fun to have a little bit more variety in my role now.
Well, congratulations. I love the story. Jumped right in. Everybody leave, figure it out. I think that's a very common story in the space of HR. We're all trying to figure it out. So when people kind of turn to Canidium, what are the challenges that they're facing and how do you all help them?
Yeah, good question. So Canidium is a software consultancy. So
Okay.
we are both the technical implementer of the software and a strategic partner. So I'll talk through both of those sides. From the technical perspective, we typically work with bigger companies that have a lot of manual processes and need to make things more efficient.
Okay.
So we're largely in the SPM space. A lot of the software we work with is commissions or pricing software.
Can you step back a little bit?
Yeah,
Can you tell listeners what SPM stands for?
yes, sales performance management.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So, yep, we helped do the requirements gathering and then implement and configure the software and customize it to exactly what the client is looking for. And
Okay.
then the strategic partner piece is equally as important. It's that relationship piece and helping the client to really get the most value and to optimize the tools that they currently have or anything that we implement. And to put it simply, we help companies make more money and improve their efficiencies and get more revenue. So, to get rid of all that jargon for a second and give a really easy to understand example, a lot of companies with sales teams
Hmm.
calculate their sales commissions on Excel.
Right.
And that works for a while, but if the sales team grows and maybe the commissions calculations just get more complicated,
Hmm.
there's more room for error. The company might choose to buy commission software,
Okay.
and that's where we come in and help implement and configure it.
Okay. So you don't necessarily build your own software. You might if they really, really wanted to, but you kind of help them come in and configure the software maybe that they've already purchased, or you may consult with them on or maybe advise them on what software to use. Is that somewhat accurate or you
Yeah,
guys develop?
exactly.
Okay, great. Pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
nope, we don't have any of our own software. It's all partner software. So SAP, Salesforce, exactly, name a couple.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When it's funny when you are starting a business and you're a small team, you look online like, oh yeah, that'll be great. I'll get HubSpot, I'll get Salesforce, I'll get these CRMs. But then the configuration and then the processes, outlining the processes to all of your customers on how they're supposed to use it, really, really interesting. Um,
Yeah, it's a whole nother story. My sister actually used to work for Salesforce in sales.
okay.
So hearing her side of things where new clients are excited about the software and then they don't know what to do with it and you can do anything with it. So it's really you need strategic experts like Canidium to come in and really help get the most out of that software.
Well, Annie, that makes a lot of sense. Really appreciate that. You definitely need an expert to kind of come in and help you with these things. Really, really complicated views, reporting. The reporting in these tools are not the easiest. So trying to figure out what views and what reports you need makes a lot of sense. So pretty cool that you are a specialist in that. So when did Canidium kind of make that decision to embrace remote work and workplace flexibility? I know you're newer, but hopefully you dug in a little bit and prepared. So, what was it that kind of sparked that shift and that motivation for you all to kind of embrace workplace flexibility, remote work specifically?
Yeah, we have an office, but we're largely remote. I'd say 95%
Okay.
is fully remote. So we started in Houston in 2008 and we had an office there. And then our CEO moved up to Fort Collins and he was working from home and didn't really like it. So he decided to get an office space.
Okay.
And the office is in Fort Collins, which is near CSU. So
Okay.
that's that connection of how I started. But so we were hiring a lot from CSU and had a lot of local employees working from the office. We still have that office space. It's a great location. It's in Old Town Fort Collins in a building called the Opera Galleria, which is an old opera hall.
Ooh.
And it's been fully renovated so it looks like an office space, but some cool history there. It's a fun location. when I used to work in the office every day when I was living in Fort Collins,
Okay.
and I got to bring my dog with me. So it's a fun office environment, but we've never had a requirement to be in the office. There were prior to COVID and prior to when I started, there were, from what it sounds like, several people going in regularly.
Hmm.
And after COVID, of course, that dispersed and people move and set up their home workspaces, and there has not been a requirement to return to office. So sometimes we have just a couple people in, and sometimes they'll have a bigger group. The Fort Collins team volunteers at the local food bank once a month. So on
Cool. That's
those
cool.
days, we might, yeah. Yeah. So it's great to have opportunities for people that are local and want to have an office, but my job, like I said, I was working in the office and now I'm fully remote. I live
Mhm.
in Dallas. And the thing that changed about my job is I no longer organize snacks and put snacks around in the office. Somebody else does that. And I had in person meetings with my boss, and now they're virtual. But
Okay.
everything else, all of my other meetings, even while I was working in the office, were also virtual.
Okay.
So it really was an easy transition. And it works well. It's such a cool opportunity to work with people across the country. We have employees in, I believe, 28 states, and we're also in Canada, India, Costa Rica, the UK, Brazil, and Argentina.
So pretty global, pretty global. Can we go a little bit back? First off, what's the CEO's name? Let's give the CEO.
Mike stress.
Okay, let's give the CEO a little love here. So I
Yeah.
love the fact you just threw that out real quick that the CEO didn't like working remotely originally and got their own office in northern Texas, you're saying, right? Like versus where it was before, Houston?
We started in Houston and
Okay.
then moved up to northern Colorado.
Northern Colorado, excuse me. Right. Okay. So he they decide to get an office in northern Colorado. At that moment, the CEO could have been like, I want everybody to, come into the office as well because I don't like it. I mean, what was the motivation to keep the flexibility? Because you said there's never really been an in-office requirement. Is there a specific reason?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think now it really differentiates us because so many employers are having a return to office policy. And we're not, and our CEO said to me that he never envisioned us doing that. So
Mm.
I don't think it's even a question at this point. We have our IT manager goes in occasionally and we have someone to check the mail, and there's a couple people because we have the space. It's important to have a few people there occasionally, but it works well. I think our work is a positive challenge, which me a challenge in the sense where people are engaged. They have to be. It's not
Yeah.
boring.
Mhm.
People have to be engaged, and there's always stuff to do.
Yeah. Cool.
Positive in the sense that they're not afraid if they run to the kitchen for a snack or the bathroom that their light might turn from
Mhm.
green to gray, and
Right.
they're not nervous about anybody keeping an eye on that. So it's just we've been doing it for so long, and it seems to work well for us.
Well, kudos to the CEO for, you know, I think right now a lot of people who are frustrated about return to office is that the CEO prefers it. So, the
Mhm.
CEO prefers being in the office. So, therefore, everybody's in the office. Kudos to your team and your leadership for, although he wanted an office, he didn't require everybody to come into it. So that
Right.
takes a lot of like self reflection, a lot of dedication to your people, and that's really cool. So, all right. So you all were doing this a ways back before it was cool. What has been the biggest challenge with what we're calling the remote employee experience? We have 9 principles. What do you think has been really some of the biggest challenges that you all have had?
Yeah, I think looking at those 9 principles, the one that stood out as our biggest challenge is responsibility. And what I mean by that is one of our corporate strategic priorities is leading with a people first culture.
Okay.
So we
Ooh.
have a responsibility to our employees, and we really value our team. They're our biggest strength and what sets us apart. And we have a responsibility to our clients and to lead with integrity, which is one of our core values. And it's a balance between having two different responsibilities, honoring client deadlines and budgets and honoring employee work-life balance. So one of the things that we do with that, and I think it's pretty rare to have good work-life balance at a consulting company, but it is something that we really strive for, and it's seen from the top down. If employees have to work on a weekend because of a client meeting or a deadline, or if they have to work long hours for days or weeks on end, then we keep an eye on that, and we have a policy for granting what we call R&R time. So for salaried exempt employees, sometimes they work more than 40 hours a week. So it's really not a requirement to reward them for going above 40. But if they're working on the weekend and really putting in extra time and really heavy on the work side of the work-life balance, we try to recognize that and give a little extra time off. And just keeping in mind the responsibility to both. And it can be a challenge for sure.
Right. So what you're saying is they have PTO already. What you all
Right.
do is say, hey, we noticed you worked 50 hours for the last 2 weeks. Why don't you take an additional few days off in addition to what you already have for PTO? I mean, like you're giving them additional time. Am I understanding that correctly? Or
Yeah, that's correct. And there's a lot that goes into those decisions depending on the stress level and the situation and all of these factors that can play a part in that. And it's not, if the employee's own time management gets them into that situation, that's a different story. But
mm,
um,
mm.
yeah, we really want to recognize and reward our people.
Now, do they have to take the time off? Or, is a situation like, look, we have to protect you from yourself? Or is it, yeah, I'll take it? Because I mean, there are those people that are like, yeah, no, 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 I'll take some time off, just not this week. Oh, just not next week. Oh, just not the week after. So, how do you kind of protect the employees from themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's optional. It's not forced for anybody to take the R&R
Okay.
time. I think one of the perks of the size that we are at about 130 employees is that managers really know their team. So that
Mm,
they'll know who is going to take it and who might need an extra push and encouragement to,
okay.
or maybe they'll split it up and they'll take a half day here and a half day there
Okay.
just so they can fit it in, but they're still protecting themselves from burning out.
That's great. We haven't had too many guests come on the show and mention responsibility as their biggest challenge. And the way you just talked about that, there's a lot of responsibility on both the individual. You talked about yourself when you started not knowing anything, but having to ask a lot of questions and not having a lot of experience. But like Annie, you took it amongst yourself. You took on the personal responsibility to ask questions, to engage with people that you normally wouldn't engage with in order to perform better in your job. So for us, when we talk about responsibility to organizations and clients, we're talking about it as a two-way street. And I love how you kind of threw that in there. And then at the same time, when you're talking about managers, responsibility of the organization, the way you all are providing flex time and ensuring people get a break, that can be a challenge because you have customers that need attention,
Right.
and that friction, that natural friction between, look, if we don't take on this responsibility and ensure that our employees are rested, it's going to have a result on the back end that could be a lot worse. I think it's really cool that you all put a lot of focus on responsibility from that standpoint, because I don't think most organizations put the person first, realizing that if they do that, they will get those gains later on. You know what I mean? Like, we want to be good for our people, but we're also in business to be profitable. So the fact that
Right.
you all
Yeah.
put the responsibility as a challenge of that natural friction all the time of servicing our clients and then also ensuring that our people are okay is really commendable. So good to you and good to the leadership for making that a priority. Were there any other challenges that came to mind, or was that like really a big one? Any other challenges?
Yeah. Well, another one that's kind of a two-way street is engage. And I
Okay.
think that really comes into play in a remote organization. We, as a company, I think we do a lot to keep our employees engaged, but then it's up to the employee to choose how much they want to engage and participate in. I'll give a couple examples. So we consistently have an engagement score of about 8.2 out of 10. So we do have strong engagement
Nice.
in terms of the work that people are doing.
Is that your net promoter score, by the way? Just to clarify. I'm sorry, your employee net promoter score, the ENPS. When you say 8 or 9 out of 10.
Yes, exactly. So then we offer different ways to engage outside of work in paid volunteer time called Canidium Gives Back. And the fun thing with that being remote is that people can volunteer in their local community, wherever that is, all over the
Yeah,
world, or while they're traveling. That's something that we sometimes encourage as well. It's kind of a sneaky way to take an extra day of PTO without using up your PTO balance. Just volunteer wherever you're traveling to. So that's
that's
something that we
interesting.
offer. Yeah, we have somebody that does that, and I was like, "That's a good way to." Or around the holidays, like serving at a soup kitchen or something around Thanksgiving, not taking a PTO day, but still taking some time off and giving back to the community and getting paid for it.
It's
So
pretty neat.
win, win, win.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So, what other ways do you kind of engage with your team? Maybe that aren't so voluntary. Like, do you have any kind of like things that you all do to ensure that people are connecting and ensure that you're building some type of engagement?
Yeah, we have a weekly all hands call. We have an internal mentoring program
Ooh,
and leader success groups, which is something I started last year. That's like a peer advisory group for managers
nice.
or small groups, 3 to 4 peer managers to engage and to learn from each other, to talk about their challenges. And then we have various chat spaces like Canidium for dog lovers, Canidium for cat lovers. So a lot of different ways for people to engage in a remote environment that, there's not the break room where everyone's gathering around and people can still get to know each other on a more personal level. But just back to the two-way street comment, we have all these opportunities and a lot of people do engage in them
Mhm.
and a lot of people don't. And that's okay. It's there for the people that want these opportunities and it's not forced.
Yeah, forced engagement's tough. Oh, do you all do a company retreat where everyone comes together?
We used to have annual retreats prior to COVID. So the last one was in 2019 and people want it. We've thought about it and talked about it, but it's really, really costly to do
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
So a different thing that we're trying more this year is to be mindful of where we're traveling to as a company for events and conferences, and then look at the map and see what employees live in or near that city that we're already going to, a couple employees are already going to, and then invite them to dinner or invite them to an event. And they've done that with me in Dallas. They've come to a couple events here, and I've gotten to go to barbecue, the classic thing everyone wants to do. And it's been great. And just to meet some more coworkers and whether I work with them a lot or not, it's for me, I think it's really fun to get to meet more of my coworkers in
Sure,
person.
for sure. So we've talked about a couple of challenges, responsibility and engagement. For sure. Definitely understand both of those. But now, what about some of your biggest successes? Like this workplace flexibility, there are some advantages here. What
Yeah.
have been some of your biggest successes, you believe?
Yeah. So when I was looking at all 9 when we first met, I had a hard time picking one because truly I felt like we do well in each of the 9 principles. So I'm going to pick hire and onboard and kind of lump it into one category.
Okay.
And I'm picking that partly because from my HR background, I have the most experience in that side of things.
Okay.
So I think that is an area that we do really well in, and we have good talent. We have a pretty low turnover rate, and a lot of that comes from bringing the right people in and then giving them a positive onboarding experience
Mm,
and getting them comfortable and confident early on.
okay.
So I can talk about what that looks like. Starting with hiring, we really do mostly passive recruiting where we post a job and then let candidates come to us. And we also have an employee referral program, and that seems to work well, fortunately. So we don't have to spend too much time or investment in active recruiting.
I was just getting ready to say, are your jobs mostly posted as fully remote? And, are they regionally remote? Because I know the applications must be
Yeah.
insane, the number of applications that you get.
Yeah, for some roles, we get a ton of applicants. Other roles, they're pretty specific to they require experience in a specific software, so that helps narrow down the pool a little bit. But the first interview is with me, and it's a 30-minute virtual interview. And sometimes I have wished that we've had like an AI platform to do the initial interview because that would be more efficient. I could just watch all these videos and then decide on who moves forward. But from the candidate experience, that's not what I would want. And that's their first impression of Canidium. So if they can talk to a person and I can answer their questions and give them a realistic job preview, I think that really goes a long way.
I concur. I agree.
Um,
I agree.
yeah, yeah. So it's worth it. It's worth the extra time. And that's where we start. And then after the first interview, we send candidates a set of assessments. And
Yep.
that includes a cognitive assessment, personality, emotional intelligence, and then sometimes like an Excel assessment or something more technical.
Hmm.
And that's really helpful to reduce bias and get a broader picture of who the candidate is. And then from there, we have 1 or 2 more interviews that are typically more focused on their technical skills and background as it relates to the position.
Okay. All right. So, what about onboarding? So, you talked about the hiring process. What do you do that's unique on the onboarding side?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is communication. We don't want a new hire to feel like they don't know what to expect, they don't know what to do on their first day, and those feelings of uncertainty early on just are not setting them up for success.
No.
So, we communicate beforehand, telling them what to expect on their first day, when to log on for orientation, when they'll get their credentials, what I-9 documents to bring, all of that logistical aspect as well. And then on their first day, they have an orientation meeting with myself or our HR coordinator and our IT manager. And then they have a checklist of things to go through, like setting up their email signature and reading the handbook. And then in the afternoon, they have a more interactive onboarding meeting with our LPMO director, Learning Program Management Office. And that meeting is really giving them more background on Canidium and the work that we do, and then what they can expect in their role. And
Okay.
from there, their onboarding includes shadowing and hands on experience. And we've had numerous employees tell us that it's been a really smooth onboarding process. They've gotten up to speed quickly and overall just have felt really strongly about it. And then it shows. I just looked the other day, our average tenure is almost 5 years. So
Congratulations. Congratulations.
yeah,
That's awesome. So, how long does your onboarding process kind of last?
it really depends on the role and the level that an employee's at. If they're coming in an entry level role, it's going to last longer. I would guess a couple of months just to like shadowing
Mhm.
and really getting familiar with their role. But if they're like a lead architect or someone that's been working for years and they can come in and they can get started on a project within a couple of days sometimes.
Well, that's great. So, last question for us. If you could go into a time machine and go backwards and meet your younger self, the intern, Annie the intern, if you could go back and talk to Annie the intern, what piece of advice would you give to Annie the intern regarding the remote employee experience?
Would tell myself to find a hobby outside of my house and that's not very similar to my job and to
Okay.
do that because otherwise I'll be in my house all day. And the truth is I would rather be hybrid. I would love to have an office to go into once or twice a week.
Okay.
So that is advice that I've taken, and I volunteer once a week or every other week teaching English classes in person, which is so different than this job.
Hmm.
And it gets me out of the house, and then I come back and I feel really productive. And I think that really helps just to add more balance and to do something different. And it helps me to enjoy my job more.
100%. It's a great answer. The
Okay.
thing is, Annie, you have to be intentional about your social connections. You can't just
Yeah.
think that they're going to happen. And honestly, they don't happen in person when you go into the office 5 days a week. It doesn't happen there. The intentionality of finding something outside of work can make your work experience so much better. Kudos to you, Annie, and then kudos to Annie, the intern, for getting that information, because we're going to figure out time travel very soon, I believe. Okay, Annie, now we're at the point of the show where we want people to be able to reach out to you. Where can our listeners and viewers find you online on the interwebs?
Sure. I'd love to connect. I'm on LinkedIn at Annie Diiorio, Diiorio. And our company website is www.canidium.com.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Annie. I really appreciated you taking the time. Fascinating story, fascinating advice or expertise on the remote employee experience. Once again, thank you for joining us. To everyone else out there, please be safe, everyone. We'll talk to you all soon. Peace.